Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Echelon Cycling Podcast. This is our long format podcast where we talk about the races that have gone and look a bit ahead as well in the week. And as always, I'm joined by Audu Cycling creator and owner, Patrick, and also proud Yorkshireman, and of course our very own Mr. Gregor himself, Mr. Ewan Wilson. So guys, it's been a very busy week of cycling. We've had the opening of the big classics in Belgium of Omloop Het Nieuwsblad and Kern-Brussels-Kern. We've also had the UAE Tour as well, which was headlined by the world champion. So there's plenty of things to get through here, so where better to start than the UAE Tour? What kind of happened in the UAE Tour this year?
Sand happened. It's just, I thought, and this is a big mistake from my part, I thought it was an individual time trial. It was not. It was a team time trial. I don't know why team time trials are a thing. Like, Paris says one, but anyway, whatever about that. I don't know. There were some sprints.
What?
Yeah.
Team time trials. Oh, I can't have this from both of you now. Okay, never mind.
They're back.
I concur. Sorry, the best thing the coronavirus pandemic did to the world was temporarily scrap team time trials. I wish that would have just continued, but it seems like we're getting them back slowly but surely. It is a shame humanity cries.
I don't necessarily mind a team time trial. It's like basically why are they're usually in these stage races, right, as a preparation because they come in a Grand Tour later on in the year. Do any of the Grand Tours have a team time trial this year? I don't think they do. So therefore, it's like what? Yeah, like do they have basically what's their purpose this year? They usually act as like a
excitement.
I don't know.
I'm not sure, but the Vuelta the starts in Barcelona. Is that a TTT or an individual time trial? I would expect a triple T because they've done those a lot in the past. Yeah. But they look silly. I'm sorry. I mean, we haven't actually touched on the UAE tour yet, but they look stupid. Like, it's just a big line of riders from the same team, and they all go on their own. Try explaining that to someone who's never watched cycling before. It's really difficult. Like, team time trials they're silly. I don't know. They just don't look. They don't look right. They look out of place.
Yeah. Should we talk about UAE Tour?
Team time trial bashing out of the way. Surprise winner on stage one.
Yeah, it was an interesting stage one. There was a lot of crosswinds and stuff, which is part of the reason why UAE Tour can sometimes be interesting. And it was Tim Merlier who took the win on stage one. And it was quite interesting. There were quite a lot of high caliber sprinters in that first group, which I was quite surprised by. Usually you see quite a big split, like especially Caleb Ewan is usually on the kind of receiving end of all this crosswind action. Whereas I was quite surprised that he was there. And it was, let's face it, it was separated by a pixel, I think, is pretty much what everybody decided by it, until pretty much Merlier walked up to the screen and just went, I think I won it. And then the jury just went, yeah, obviously. And then, there was a team time trial. Some other sprints like Groenewegen took one. Sam Welsford took one.
Sam Welsford did not take one.
Did he not?
Juan Seba Milano took one.
Oh, yeah, he did, of course. Yeah, sorry. There are so many sprints in UAE Tour, and they all just blur into one.
Corrections corner there.
Somebody bring back the Hatterdam, for goodness sake. Like, what are we doing? Seriously. Like, that needs to come back. Just to provide some freaking structure in the race. I have no idea what's going on with it. And then, the GC battle was all right, to be fair. It was more interesting today than it was up Jebel Jais, that's for sure.
Jebel Jais is just kind of like a phony, it's like a stalemate climb almost, which is strange because it's the biggest climb in terms of its length of the race. It goes higher than the Jebel Hafid, but it never really breaks up the GC group. But it was good to see Aino Rubio get a win on his birthday as well. Pretty decent birthday present with his first ever UCI World Tour level victory for Movistar, who have started the season pretty well. I mean, in comparison to the past couple of years since the COVID break. So they're slowly but surely rebuilding themselves. And I mean, the final climb at the final stage was pretty interesting, seeing Yates really go for it, winning the Jebel Hafid, which we did kind of see coming, and seeing Evenepoel properly getting challenged by a rival was pretty interesting. Yeah. I mean, dropped, but then he sort of time trialed, limited his losses to Yates, where it could have easily been sort of a big hemorrhage of 30 seconds, but he limited it to just a handful. Which to some extent he did at last year's Vuelta. Even when he was losing time, he just sort of measured his effort and kept his cool and didn't hemorrhage that much time. I think when Evenepoel loses big, he loses big. But even if he's dropped, he measures it to make it so there's minimal damage. And I think that's going to be interesting going forward, especially looking at the Giro.
Well, yeah, I think that is the poignant question here. Is Remco Evenepoel, would you consider him still the Giro d'Italia favorite right now with the information that we have,
Yes.
judging by UAE Tour, etc., and with the team here?
Yeah, I think so. I think, there's still some doubts possibly about Quick-Step's strength in being able to get over, the Giro's classic third week monstrous stages that really get thrown at them. Can Quick-Step still survive that? I think they certainly can. And even if they necessarily don't, it's still, the onus is still on another team like Ineos to have two riders up there, which is still likely considering they do have a Rensman and Geraint Thomas going. So the onus would still be on Ineos to really make the race at that point. But I think that Evenepoel, with his time trialing ability and, like Ewan said, his ability to limit his losses even when he is perhaps on a bad day, it still makes him one of the favourites, if not, in my opinion, still the favourite for the Giro. I'm just not certain about the ability of somebody like Geraint Thomas really to topple him, considering how Remco looked at the Vuelta.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he definitely has to still be the favourite. We've seen now with the UAE Tour win that he can win a UCI 1 week long stage race, because he hasn't been able to do that since his crash. He's entered a number of them, looking at Tour de Suisse last year, Basque Country last year, Tirreno last year, and the Benelux Tour in 2021, entered all of them and wasn't really in the frame for GC. But this one, he enters and he wins. He didn't win a stage, however. But it does sort of point towards a good progression towards the Giro d'Italia. And with all the time trialing kilometers we're going to have in that race, I think that will automatically make Remco Evenepoel the favorite, because, there's 70 kilometers of time trial, if I recall. That's enough sort of kilometers to really give him a huge advantage. Even if he does sort of fall apart in the mountains, I think the buffer that he's going to get over those time trials will probably be enough to help him. We saw that even at the UAE Tour. He didn't really panic when Yates dropped him because he gained the time on the crosswind stage, and with the Triple T, Soudal, who won the stage, by the way, made enough time to sort of chill Remco Evenepoel out. The Giro will start with the TT. There he'll have the chance to sort of gain some time on Sasha Vlasov, on probably Roglic, and probably Geraint Thomas to put himself in a comfortable position. I really do think Evenepoel will still be the favourite. I don't quite know how he's going to react to being the out-and-out favourite going into the Giro with a very different sort of Grand Tour setup to the Vuelta last year. We'll wait and see. But on paper, everything points towards it has the perfect ingredients for Remco Evenepoel to be the top dog on the start line in May.
I guess we don't know what Roglic is like, though.
I don't think we will know what Roglic is like. I think they're sort of keeping him on his own with the altitude camps. We'll see at the Vuelta Catalunya, which, by the way, I think is a strange choice to make that his only race before the Giro, when a lot of his rivals are going to Tirreno. I thought Tirreno would be a natural choice to test him against them, but instead he's going to Catalunya. Notoriously not like the sort of number one tune-up race for a Grand Tour. It's sort of one of these stage races that just happens. But he's going there, and then we won't see him until the Giro. So he is the unknown. I have faith in Roglic. I think Roglic will do a really good Giro d'Italia. He's very well drilled, and I think he will be probably him and Sasha Vlasov will be the two guys who will be pressing Evenepoel across the 3 weeks.
But yeah, speaking of Jumbo-Visma, there was incredible dominance by Jumbo-Visma. If you missed it last week, we had a clip where we were questioning the tactics of Jumbo-Visma, and some quite funny comments in the comment section on that video. In terms of this double header that we had with Omloop Het Nieuwsblad and Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne, what happened?
It was just Jumbo-Visma just making it look so easy. It was just like Quick-Step back in the day when they were just easily winning races. And it's not even like the same rider won it twice. It was two different riders, and it wasn't even reliant upon, say, a Laporte in a sprint to be required. It was from just very good team strategy. Of course, Van Baarle went and won it on an Omloop from a solo attack. He only literally made one attack. It wasn't even the most blistering attack. He just went into a group, and then he pretty much just rode everybody off of his wheel. And then he just rode to victory. There was a counter-attack behind. It contained Vellens, De Lee. Who else was in there?
Matej Mohoric was there as well.
Yeah, Matej Mohoric, Laporte was in there as well. Of course, Laporte was disrupting, but Van Baarle was just away for a good, I don't know, 30-ish kilometers or so, something like that, and just held off the field. It was incredibly impressive, and it's a great signing from Jumbo-Visma. I think the fact that they can shield a Wout van Aert who doesn't have to be in peak form right now, and then they can deploy all these other riders, of which that is why Van Baarle was brought in this year, to be that other classics kind of rider that they can deploy. It's just such a great move by Jumbo, and they are just incredibly dominant to the point where it's a bit annoying now, to be honest with you, already.
Yeah, I mean, total Jumbo-Visma destruction, really on the opening weekend. Omloop was probably the most evident of total Jumbo-Visma destruction, in the fact that Van Baarle went away almost effortlessly, really, powered all the way to the end, with no one really seeming like they came close to challenging him. And then they also had different cards to play with. Laporte behind. They sort of ground up the group. They made a group of 20 or so riders very early on in the race, almost for no reason, just to sort of test the other teams. And they made up almost like a third of that group, and with their numbers, it really was a show of strength. And yeah, I mean, worrying for what is to come. But at Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne, I think that was more sort of, other teams could have come close, but they really sort of benefited from the numerical advantage in the group. When Benoot went, there was sort of chaos behind. They started looking at each other, and that was enough to sort of break the elastic and for Benoot to go all the way. And it was like they didn't sort of back one of their horses. They weren't sure whether it would be Van Hooijdonk or Benoot, as they kept them both in contention all the way to the end. They didn't sort of have enough confidence to send one up the road or to try to get it solo. They wanted to bank on a sort of dash in the final kilometer, which was brave of them to do so, especially when you have Mohoric and Taco van der Hoorn in that group, who are two of probably the most tactically intelligent riders in the professional peloton, especially on a classics profile like this. So it really was impressive. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how I feel about the upcoming classics with this kind of domination. It feels a little bit more dominant than Quick-Step for some reason. Feels like it's more calculated than Quick-Step. Quick-Step sometimes was like, wow, like it was a little bit sort of chaotic, but it all worked out in the end. Where Jumbo now, it's like, oh, okay, it's done now. Like you really could have switched off Omloop with 30 kilometers to go, seeing that Van Baarle had 30 seconds of a lead. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you have to give props as well to like Arnaud Delis, who, despite crashing in Omloop, fought his way back like in the wind by himself, managed to make it into that front group of the Mer-Kappelmer, and then also sprinted to second place with the kind of peloton, if you want to call it, charging up behind. I mean, that was sensational. And then he backed it up with another good performance in KBK today. So really going to show that all the hype around Arnaud Delis is not just bullshit. It is an actual straight up fact that he is an animal at the moment, and who knows what he's going to be doing. Maybe he'll win Milano-San Remo. There might be a clip about that somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like I recall some kind of discussion about that. Is the question here, has Jumbo-Visma once again changed cycling? Are they too strong now? We were talking about it last week, that we thought it was a bit risky just going straight from Tenerife to racing without any warm-up, tune-up races and going straight for the targets. And here we are. They end the drought that the Belgian riders had in Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. No winner since 2016. And they get 4 riders on 2 podiums, which is quite impressive, to say the least, for 2 days. And we haven't even talked about Gran Camino yet.
And it was 4 different riders as well. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
It makes it all the more impressive. It's like last week was the UAE show. This week it's Jumbo-Visma, yin and yang. They're doing a little cha-cha-cha with domination through the cycling season, and it's interesting to see. I think Jumbo-Visma is probably the one that's innovating them more than UAE. Jumbo have been innovating since their rebrand as Jumbo-Visma in 2019. Ever since then, I think we did see this very big paradigm shift. Particularly with the COVID break. After that, it felt almost as though, boom, we have the new super team, and everyone was following them, sort of copying what they were doing. They even have management staff at the top. Richard Plugger, he's a very innovative, very different kind of CEO, one that we don't see I mean, it takes a lot for a team to sort of to go through these big paradigm shifts. And he is the guy who is implementing so many new ideas and so many innovative plans for Jumbo-Visma. And it is paying off. I think the altitude camp thing is working for them. It worked last year with Vingegaard. I was skeptical about it in 2021, but now I think it really is. This could be the neat new trick. Other teams have been trying to do it for a while. Sky were playing around with it back in 2012 in the Wiggins year, where they sent their riders off to a training camp for a while, but not quite to the length that Jumbo-Visma were doing. And also just the fact that they're very sort of fine-tuned. They've streamlined the season for their top dogs very neatly. I think probably shows that they know something about the numbers. They know something about the riders, their form, their morale that we as fans don't quite know. And it seems to be working 100% at the moment. The opening weekend of the Classic shows that, as does Gran Camino, which we'll talk about later on.
It's as if over the years, just somebody else has just emerged each year. Like Jumbo came with, they had like Roglic, Wout van Aert and Dumoulin. And then it was like Vingegaard came along. And they also had Sepp Kussem. And it seemed like a very GC-orientated team. But now, through the last 2 years, with the addition of Laporte and also Van Baal and the development of Van Hooijdonk, plus Tratnik as well. And Benoot, all of a sudden now it's also a classics team and a world dominating GC team. So it's everywhere. And it's in the cyclocross and it's in the under 23 races as well, because their under 23 team, alongside FDJ, is probably one of the best. They've got, last year they had 2 riders on the podium of Lavenir and Hessman and what's the Norwegian guy's name? Johannes Stouter-Mitten.
Yeah.
He was up there as well. They've also got Archie Ryan as well. They've got the Van Dijk twins as well. It's just insane. They are everywhere. Jumbo-Visma is the dominant team in cycling. Dare I say, too dominant.
It is sort of, no one likes out and out dominance. It makes it less interesting as fans. There's not as much intrigue of who's going to win the race. Oh, we don't quite know. And then it opens it up tactically. No one really knows what's going on. Whereas now we have an out and out team that will go into most races this year as the team to beat. All eyes will be on them. All expectations are weighed on them. That I think once they're winning, it gets boring. However, Think about how we're going to feel if it backfires at one point. Then we're going to see sort of, I don't know, I feel like there's going to be questions and so forth, and the community will liven up a little bit. Even with some of their sprinters, Olaf Koy as well. Once he gets going on some of these big World Tour level sprints, it is going to be it's going to open things up. It's going to make things really, really dominant for the squad. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, Jumbo-Visma have completely changed cycling, just in exactly the same way Sky have, but they've updated it for 2020. How long this dominance can last, I don't know, until maybe some of their staff members start moving around, some of their riders start moving around and sharing their expertise. Maybe the Jumbo-Visma sort of the secret formula will be leaked, and other teams will find out what they're doing and follow suit. It will probably be a while until we reach that point. We're probably moving towards the peak of Jumbo-Visma dominance. We've seen the sort of the rise, 2019 really up until this point. This is the strongest we have seen them since they started, really, in the past 12 months. Is this the peak? Are we going to keep riding this wave? For how much longer can we keep riding this wave? We'll wait and find out. Do we have any legitimate people who can possibly rival? Maybe UAE Team Emirates. They just have a very, very different mentality of working. Can they shift that mentality towards a Jumbo-style one? We'll wait and see.
And the fact that we haven't even got Wout van Aert started a race yet in the road season is terrifying. Yeah, we talked about this. Dylan Van Baal, Ineos letting him go was a big mistake, and he proves it in the first race at Omloop.
Yeah, exactly. I also want to point out Wilco Kelderman. I think he's going to be a big, big character in what could be an incredibly dominant year for Jumbo-Visma.
They messed up big time.
Oh, no.
Not Jumbo.
No. But then again, you don't know what sort of the money and the contract and all these perks that they've offered the riders. But I think I really, really think Wilco Kelderman's going to be a star in 2023 for Jumbo.
Yeah. 30% off his Jumbo shopping.
Exactly.
But it isn't all about Jumbo-Visma. Well, we could also talk about a different team. They had success at the UAE Tour with sprint stages and taking the overall and also the team time trial. But what is happening with Soudal Quickstep's Classics campaign? We've spoken about it in a number of years where they've just faded in the Cobble seasons almost.
Yeah, it feels like only really started last year for me because, it only feels like yesterday, but Asgreen was really dominating well, not dominating, but, he was doing really well in all the cobbled races. And the days of like 2019 when Gilbert won Roubaix, and they also had Lampard on the podium. And then the emergence of sort of Seneschal came along as well. And it was like, oh, this is a really kind of very versatile team. But of course, it's just kind of, I don't know, somehow something has changed. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something happened last year where things didn't go their way. The ball stopped rolling last year, so to say, and it just hasn't really got going yet. Again, I'm not sure if it's to do with the Alaphilippe factor. Maybe they just need a bit of zing just injected into the team. I'm not really sure, but it's just it is a bit stale, and I don't know what it is. It's a shame because I think Quickstep are just an absolute kind of must-have in the classics. It's so odd that they weren't really present. I mean, they got sixth place with Ballerini in Omloop, and Jakobsen's not really firing on all cylinders either. He was barely able to sprint at the end of Kerner today. He didn't manage to make it to win the bunch kick. So I'm not really sure what's going on with Quickstep, but I hope they turn it around.
I think missing zing is quite a good way of putting it, because they have an awful lot of good guys, good performers, but not an awful lot of winners of big classics. What do I mean by that? In terms of we don't have sort of someone anchoring the team completely, and they can't rely on the sort of anarchy that they used to have in 2019, where you could rely on these guys to really keep pushing, and maybe one of them will get a win, and they have a mutually agreed confidence among themselves. I don't think they have that anymore. As much as I absolutely love the man from Cambrai in France, Florent Seneschal, I don't think he is going to win a Roubaix. I don't think he will win a Ronde van Vlaanderen. He hasn't even podiumed de monument yet in his career. I think it's bold to put him out there as sort of a guy that you are mutually confident will get a good result in one of these Flemish classics. I don't think it's realistic. Yves Lampard, similarly, he's not a winner of Cobble Classics. Maybe Dwars door Vlaanderen, that was 5 years ago now, 6 years ago, in fact. It's a while back, and we're sort of missing that sucker punch that they used to have with top form Gilbert, top form Stibar, peak Asgreen. I think Asgreen's currently going through sort of not identity crisis, but he can't quite work out if he's a wildcard breakaway guy. Is he a bit of a hilly guy who can climb quite well? Is he sort of going for the Cobble Classics? Could he win a Roubaix? Who knows? I don't think he knows either. And we're currently seeing sort of Asgreen wither away a bit, which is, a shame to see. He did seem very confident about his chances, he and Jules Alaphilippe's chances at Ronde van Vlaanderen. So we'll wait and see if that will be the big shift. This is only the opening weekend, but it doesn't really give us a good indication of what's to come.
You think the elephant in the room is one Remco Evenepoel, that they poured all their attention and focus into the Remco project, and then they've kind of the other parts that they're so good at, Soudal Quickstep, because they're not renowned as a GC team. They'd never won a Grand Tour before that Vuelta last year. Do you think that might be a bit
like parallels here with like Team Sky, and sort of once we had peak general classification, Team Sky 2012 through 15, that classics campaign was a bit meh. They didn't quite have the Cobble guys there, and then once the GC thing was kind of set up, running as it should be, as a well-oiled train, then they started firing in the classics. Maybe it's a similar thing here where the GC focus does take up a lot of resources, and you've got staff members here, there, and everywhere focusing on different goals and different racing. Probably the first time since 2019, since the UAE Tour began, that they've cared more about the UAE Tour from a results perspective than Omloop and Nieuwsblad. And that is sort of remarkable to say for Soudal Quickstep as a team that has been at the tip-top level of the classics for the past 20 years. We'll wait and see. Maybe the GC focus is clouding things a little bit. But even last year, before Remco Evenepoel won the Vuelta a España, we were still seeing a weakened classics squad from them.
They might have kind of like rested on their laurels a little bit because they were winning the classics so much that they essentially didn't progress the classics team. They said, okay, the classics team is good and it's going to do us for another 2-3 seasons or whatever. And they've actually been caught off guard by the rapid progression of other teams like Alpecin and Jumbo-Visma, who have immediately and very rapidly caught up and surpassed them whilst they've been focusing on the Remco. So they haven't really made signings into the kind of classic squad, have they? If you think about all their signings, it's all been towards the Remco project, as Scott said, that they have like stunted the progression of their classics squad. And it's not like it's bad. It's just that it used to be up here, but now it's down here because it's just because they haven't innovated, they haven't tried to move it forwards. They've just kept it at a level that they were 3 years ago, and that's not good enough anymore.
Van Baarle could have been swept up. That's something they would have done back in 2016, is buy Van Baarle. Anthony Tiesj would be a brilliant match for Soudal Quickstep. Trying to think of other riders who would really fit in with the squad. I mean, there are guys probably out there who would slot into this force very well. Dilly, yes. But I guess he's now chained up on a very, very long contract. So it'd be interesting to see what they bring in this year with the transfer market again. Are they going to push for more climbers, or are they going to let go of a couple of their classics guys because it's not worthwhile anymore? We'll find out. But they shouldn't lose sight of what their bread and butter is. They are a Flemish team with a very, very Flemish identity. I think they still do care about the Cobble Classics. They just need to figure out how they can succeed in the races they do care about.
That was a bit of a tangent and a half about Soudal Quickstep, but nevertheless, coming to the favorite part of this episode, Gran Camino, and one Jonas Vingegaard came back to racing with a bang almost. And keeping on the Jumbo-Visma dominance here, took all stages because stage 2 or stage 1 was cancelled.
Yeah, stage 1 was cancelled. A snowstorm hit the peloton. They cancelled it with sort of 15, 16 kilometers to go before an icy descent. No winner was declared. No leader's jersey either. So that opened it up. So I guess a clean sweep for Vingegaard. Very, very impressive over what was really quite the race. Quite the different profiles. Stage 2 was a mountaintop finish with sort of a cobble climb at the end through what looked like a graveyard. And Vingegaard powered away. Very, very dominant there. Then the day after, there was a gravel mountaintop finish, and Vingegaard won on that stage. Then there was a time trial around the Catholic holy city of Santiago de Compostela, where the Camino de Santiago finishes, and Vingegaard won that one. So not bad, I guess, for a week of racing.
And Rowan Dennis finished second place on that final TT as well. And I don't know, weird side note, they had a drone flying on that mountaintop finish, which I think by and large, if you were to do a poll, I reckon it's like 70% of people are saying, what is this? This is ridiculous, stupid, superfluous.
It was cool. It was nauseating, not gonna lie. Because it's like this drone is like flying around. It's like they put a camera on a sort of insect. It's just buzzing about. It's like a wasp trying to get your sandwich or your can of Coke at a picnic. It's just like flying around on the mountaintop finish. Also in the time trial. So I mean, it's great to see that the sport evolving with new technology, because the drone was so welcomed at the cyclocross worlds, but it didn't look brilliant. But I like that they're trying. O Gran Camino is one of my favorite races in the calendar for many reasons. And I think that this just goes to show this race is something to keep your eyes on. They always want to push the boundaries. They always want to push forward and innovate. And the fact that Vingegaard has won it, I think, is a good sign for things to come in this race as a sort of outrageous GC battle in northern Spain. I'm happy with it. The drone, I love the drone, not gonna lie. I love it. I thought it was so fun.
Can you imagine being Vingegaard and you're just like, for fuck's sake, what is this buzzing thing around me? I can't focus.
Exactly. It's like
they're very loud, yeah.
Just buzzing around you all the time. You're like, oh, maybe he went faster because he was like, I need to get to the finish to get away from this thing, honestly.
I'm waiting for the day it breaks and lands on the rider.
That's gonna happen.
It's like buzzing around, and all of a sudden it strikes the rider. And then we have a protest or something. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely innovating technology. Who knows if we're going to have it at this year's Tour de France? Just imagine. We're in the Puy de Dôme, and all of a sudden, this drone is just following Pogačar and Vingegaard side by side, all around it. It'll be awesome. It'll be one of these shots of the year.
As long as I get a decent quality camera on it. Right, and it's not just like some free, like 60p shit, then like actually maybe I reckon it could be pretty cool. But if it's just fuzzy, then just like there's no point.
Okay, drone talk aside, Vingegaard did win the race. Did this prove anything to you guys? We spoke about Tadej Pogačar now showing that he's on imperious form. This kind of showing that Jonas Vingegaard is on imperious form as well. But I mean, the competition, Ruben Guerrero, wasn't the stiffest, to say the least, in this race.
It kind of reminds me, it's like Pogačar warming up for the Tour de France at the Tour of Slovenia, in my eyes. I'm sorry, it just is.
That has weaker field as well. I'm sorry, Tour of Slovenia, but that was.
I know you're a fan of it, Ewan, but like, yeah, it's Vingegaard having a nice time, just shitting on some people in some Spanish stage race for a couple of days to get his ego up.
Yeah, I think that is actually quite a good point in terms of it being a morale boost. Not in terms of it being a shitty Spanish race. It's brilliant. Which other races in the calendar follow a Catholic pilgrimage route? That's awesome. And have cobble mountaintop finishes over 1,000 meters that look like they're going through a graveyard. This is the Game of Thrones of bike racing, and it is brilliant. Even the fact that snow called off the first stage, it added to the narrative. It was captivating. Also, Santiago de Compostela is a cool city. Galicia in general is just a pretty fun part of Spain. It's actually where the Celts landed in Iberia. They came down from Cornwall through Brittany, ended up in Galicia. Hence the name Galicia, like the Gallics. Nevertheless, Vingegaard, yeah,
exactly.
It's a decent win, but it really doesn't add anything to his palmarès, apart from it being a morale boost. That he is in check, his team are in check. It's fine.
Yeah, can we now start talking about him being the favourite for the Tour de France, or is that too far of a leap here?
I don't know. I think Pogačar also looks so strong at Ruta del Sol. But it's tete-a-tete at the moment for me. I can't really split them at the moment. Of course, yeah, it is such a long way to the Tour that I'm struggling to draw conclusions. I think they've both won a Spanish stage race. Of course, Jonas has followed a Catholic pilgrimage, so obviously that has increased kudos.
That's very true.
So I don't know. I think that at the moment they're like neck and neck.
I would say Pogačar's probably ahead because of the field he rode in was stronger at both Jaén and in Andalusia. I mean, I really want to see Jonas win a road stage that isn't just a mountaintop finish. I want to see him win a road stage in a way that Pogačar would win a road stage with a big long attack soloing all the way to the end. I want to see Vingegaard win a hilly stage. We've only really seen him win mountain stages. Jebel Jais in 2021, the Crow race last year, that was his last win 150 days ago. The Tours de France stage that he won, they're all mountaintop finishes. I want to see Jonas win a hill stage. At that point, I can confidently say that I think he's a stronger contender than Pogačar. But I think we're going to have those questions answered very soon in Paris-Nice, where we're going to see them battle on a more sort of all-round terrain. Because no offense to Gran Camino, it didn't have the most versatile parkour. A hilly stage on stage one, which was cancelled, well, neutralized, and then 2 mountaintop finishes and a time trial. We didn't quite get enough of sort of a race portfolio, really, different types of stages to see Jonas really flourish on a classic style day in the way that Pogačar could absolutely destroy it.
I think, like you say, just tease it up really nice for Paris-Nice. I think it's going to be one of the most exciting Paris-Nice stages that we've seen in a long time. Nevertheless, there was also another race in a different continent, the Tour of Rwanda, and we had a certain 4-time Tour de France winner there, Chris Froome, who almost seemed like he was going to take a stage win at one point. And what did you guys make of the stage race that was won by, now this is going to be very offensive, Henok Mulu-Herban, the African continental champion as well, and has been bigged up as one of the big rising stars of Eritrea.
I like that Africa has this Tour of Rwanda. I think that it's important that, especially with Bini on the rise, that it's important that African cycling doesn't just have one person, but they try to have multiple people getting their names in the limelight, and just having another rider, especially considering that he is a part of a pro-continental team. So maybe he might get to be competing in a slightly bigger, more competitive field. So we could see kind of, his African championship bands. That would be kind of nice to see as well. They'd look better than UAE's anyway, whatever. But yeah, I think it's great that he won. I think that, it just gives Africa another rider to really cheer about, because it's obviously such a vibrant community who want to get behind their riders, and just adding another one in there is such a great thing for them, I think.
Yep, I agree completely. I think it's good to have new guys coming through. He's double African champion now. He's got the jersey for that. He's a strong sort of punchy sprinter, and he's also riding for Bardiani, or Green Project, I believe they're now called, which gives him the opportunity to race at some top level RCS races, such as the Giro d'Italia, which is coming up later this year. If he starts that race, I think it'll be fun to see what he can do there on a couple of the hillier sprinting days. I don't think he's quite on a Biniam Girmay level now. They're similar ages, actually. So maybe in a season or two, he can build up to that point. But I think Bardiani have signed themselves up for a good rider here. Also, I like the fact his name is Enoch or Henoch. It's another reference to religion as well in this podcast.
Even Vernon won 2 stages. Quickstep have another young kind of climber on their hands in William Junior Leclerc. So another young Belgium short climber to add to Remco's armada for the future.
Rwanda was a good week for sort of testing out British riders as well. A couple of strong results for like young Brits. There's a guy from Trinity. Apologies, I can't remember his name. He finished in top 10. Also, my buddy Mark Stewart came second on the stage. Good to see him doing well after all these years. Solid week, really, for the Brits.
Vernon riding for the development team for Soudal Quickstep. I thought that was quite strange.
They're allowed to do that. I think the development team are allowed to have maybe one or two pro riders in one of the smaller races. Yeah, I can't quite remember what the rule is on it, but you can field and pro to a development team on these small races as long as they're from the same sort of family. So like one of the riders from Jumbo-Visma could ride with the dev team at sort of Alpes-Maritimes du Var. No, sorry, Alpes Tour rather.
Send Wout Art to the Tour de l'Avenir right now. Imagine.
I want to see Balberde compete at the Tour de l'Avenir. That's what I want.
Well, sticking with the Tour of Rwanda, for Henoch, I think one thing that is quite comforting is looking back at the previous winners. Tesfascion won it 2 years, and he's now riding with Trek. You've got Mary Kudus as well, World Tour as well. So it's a good stepping stone for an African rider to get into the World Tour. This.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually almost hope that Africa gets more stage races. Maybe the World Championships in Rwanda will spur some enthusiasm. I really hope that they do, because obviously, we all hear about the high altitudes of some of the countries in Africa. That means they've got hills, right? That must be a mountaintop finish somewhere. Just build a road, I guess. I don't know, but I reckon that it should hopefully spur on some more development in Africa, because hopefully they can all follow nicely behind Binny and enter the World Tour, get a nice bit of African diversity in the peloton. That'd be good to see.
Yeah, that's true. But anyways, there was one team that we love to talk about, and often quite bad, which, well, sometimes good. Tour de France last year, we praised them a lot. But Israel Premier Tech, they were in the race. You wouldn't really tell other than the Froome attack, but they haven't had any victories this year. We know that they're on the fight back now to try and get back into the World Tour. Simon Clark, who was a last-minute signing last year, worth every single penny they're paying him. But yeah, what's happening with Israel Premier Tech, and how are they going to get back to the World Tour?
What I think is quite neat is if you go into Israel Premier Tech's website, they have a little ticker in the corner for how many wins they've had this season, and it's currently sitting on 0. Which I think is sort of insulting at the time of recording. For Israel Premier Tech, you also have to sort of factor in the fact that they came to this race. They have a big charity project in Rwanda, which is also why they came to this race and wanted to show their face there, particularly, I think, why Chris Froome was fielded to this race. Probably he went on his own volition. He says he used it as a tune-up race for the Tour de France.
Brilliant.
For what? What are you tuning up for, Chris? But he said the race was good preparation for his goals in July.
Bash.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but I'm waiting to see what Ugo can bring. He was a real rock of that team last year, getting a lot of solid results, including a Tour de France win. So we'll wait and see once we get to Paris-Nice. Maybe that'll be the turning point. But at the moment, yeah, not quite anything really to write home about. They've got plenty of riders that seem a little bit more sort of promising than their riders over the past couple of years. They've made some solid signings, but we're not quite seeing them firing. I think Rwanda would have been a good opportunity for them, but I don't know. It is also, it's a very different type of race. It's a lot of like dev teams. There's a national team at this kind of race. It probably operates in a very different way to a World Tour race or to a Pro Continental race. like the ones that they used to riding in Europe and so forth. So it was probably very, very different for them. And maybe that just didn't click with the riders who just weren't used to it.
Yeah, just Israel. I feel like they started, once they basically started realizing that last year that the relegation thing was a thing. But for years since, like prior to that, they've just been signing riders in the twilight of their career, which has been pointed out by multiple people, not just us, that what is the reasoning behind this? Is it that you're trying to kind of hit a rider as they're on still on the upper slopes of the downward curve, if that makes sense? So it's been a while since Fuglsang's really done anything, or Mike Woods for that manner. They've just got a lot of older riders who are taking up quite a bit of salary space, who aren't necessarily bringing in the results. Arguably, I think they're their most exciting rider. I mean, yeah, Simon Clark's doing well, but I really like Corbin Strong as well. I think that he's a great rider, just like a very versatile sprinter. He was up there in the Phone Ardèche Classic slide today or yesterday, the Phone Dlorme Classic. I think he might have been up there. Like, he's just a very versatile rider, and I think that coming from a track, that's a really good thing as well. They get a bit of exposure there as well. But yeah, Israel are going to need a bit of a overhaul to get back to the World Tour, in my opinion.
I think to some extent they've been humbled in terms of like they got a World Tour license kind of out of nowhere in 2020. No one was expecting it. They didn't perform, to be honest, at the World Tour level. And now they're at the Pro Continental level. It's like, oh, okay, we're back where we should be. We are a Pro Continental team. I mean, they've got access to a lot of big races, including the Grand Tours, which will give them a decent stage to sort of do something. They're a team that have been riding at the World Tours. They know how World Tour racing works. Maybe they'll find their groove, their rhythm at the World Tour races to come. But I mean, it's not really a squad with a roster that's lighting my fire, to be honest. I think Lotto Destiny over this weekend in particular have proved that they're more worthy of a World Tour license than Israel. But you never know. I'm very excited about a rumor I heard this week that Domenico Pozzovivo might be moving there, who doesn't have a contract at the moment. So the Giro coming up as well. I think it's a really promising lead for Pozzo. He hasn't been given another contract, and I'd love to see him racing. I think he wants to carry on racing. So maybe that'll be a lifeline for Israel.
I mean, I think that Israel could get back to the World Tour. I think especially if you consider Astana, for example, right? Take Astana outside of Lutsenko, who on that team is going to be bringing in UCI points.
Mark Cavendish.
Oh, yeah. True. Okay, yeah, that's a fair point, Cav. But they lost Lopez, so they've lost that GC accumulator of points. And if Israel were to make some actual smart signings, Dylan Turns was a decent-ish one, in my opinion. But if they made a couple more of those signings, they could, in my opinion, in the next round of the next 3-year cycle, they could, in my opinion, bump Astana down. I think, realistically.
I don't know. I don't really see a pathway for them. They have an advantage over other teams, which I don't think is necessarily fair, that they have probably one of the biggest sort of World Tour invitation loads. Their inbox is flooded with World Tour race invitations, which does give them scope to gain more points. Maybe that gives them a chance to go up. But I don't know. I think there are teams with more sustainable models. Uno X is one. Uno X with good bunch of sprinters. Vadenschald's winning. Rasmus Till is a really strong classics contender. And then you got the Johannesson twins or brothers, who I think are just really going to hit the ground running this year. That they seem more sustainable. Total Energy, they're automatically invited to all the classics anyway, and the team has as well a couple of really decent climbers. You can get top 10s in French races. They also naturally go to many French classics that offer up points. These races like the Tour de Miribel, Tour de n'importe où, whatever, where you can just kind of graze up these points with wins there. They have the opening for that. Then you have some of Lotto Destiny. Deli's going to be a cash cow in terms of points. And they also have a couple of other really good young riders coming through as well. So I think other teams have more sustainable models. Yes, Israel have their dev team, have brought through a couple of good guys, but I don't really see a pathway for them getting back onto the World Tour unless there's a big upheaval or changing of the rules. I don't see it happening. They won't be happy with that.
Well, finishing on that love letter to Israel Premier Tech, we are finishing with our rider of the week. And this is, of course, where the three of us pick a rider that we think has been the best rider of the week. And then Yeah, and then they get very happy, the riders, probably. Patrick, we'll let you go first. Who's been your rider of the week? And please don't pick someone from Yorkshire.
Well, I can't because Ben Turner crashed, unfortunately, and it's a fractured elbow. And I don't feel like Pidcock with a fifth place onward really warrants it. So I'm going to go with not somebody from Yorkshire, but a UK rider who probably went a little bit under the radar at the Gran Camino, and that is Lucas Nerurka, who finished in sixth place in GC and won the youth classification. And he was a very promising rides for Trinity, and I think finishing in sixth place ahead of the likes of David de la Cruz, Simon Geschke, Fortunato. I think that he's a great British talent. And you know, when that comes at a time where the Tour Series calendar has been cancelled this year, you know, because of British cycling, which is a real shame because I know a lot of my friends like to ride him out, and it gives the exposure needed for continental kind of level riders. It's good to see British riders doing well outside of that. So yeah, he's my rider of the week, a little bit under the radar.
I'm picking Jonas Vingegaard because he won every race he started this week.
What? You can't take mine. You can't take mine.
Take it. Just deal with it.
Change your opinion, Scott.
Yeah, I have to change it now.
Shall I pick someone else? Shall I?
Yeah, go on. Okay, I want Jonas Vingegaard.
Rustle up a rogue name. In that case, I'm gonna go for Matej Mohoric. I know Matej Mohoric or Tim Wellens, really, really strong opening weekends in sort of races we wouldn't necessarily think that they would do well in. When you think of Tim Wellens, you don't think of Omloop or Kuna Brussel Kuna, yet he was there right in the mix at the end. Shows really good promise. At a new team as well, he's performed very, very well in this opening part of the season. So in order to not pick Vingegaard, I'm going to choose Tim Wellens.
I changed my mind, so sorry, Jonas. I'm picking his teammate. I'm picking his teammate, Van Baal, because 100% record in his first race.
Okay. Jesus.
On that bombshell, that's it for the Echelon Cycling Podcast, our 5th episode, and we're really happy that we're already here. If you haven't already, subscribed to the channel here on YouTube, or if you're listening on the various different platforms that we're out on, and apologies for the Spotify people, it took a bit longer last week. But yeah, with that, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and of course, as always, thank you for watching and have a nice day.